and welcome to Sarah's Stamper Retreat. Today we're going to be using this Tidings and Trimmings stamp set with the stars and the stockings and the foliage, this cute ribbon, and the coordinating Christmas trimmings dies. So you can see some of these dies cut out some elements from here and some of them stand alone. So we've got this like big detail star, the small detail star, but the outline of that cuts out this one. And then we've got some of the kind of foliage bits, some of them cut out pieces from on here, some don't. So I'm going to be creating 5 cards with those today. Then to start off with, for this card, I'm going to take some Poppy Parade ink and I'm just going to print this stocking 3 times on some Poppy Parade cardstock, so you just kind of get like a 2-tone effect, you see. So then I'm going to just use my Evening Evergreen ink to print my bow onto some Bumblebee cardstock. So I'm going to do that 3 times as well because I want one for each stocking. So then I'm going to use the stocking die to cut out the stockings, and I'm also going to use the bow die to cut out the bows. So then I've got my bows and my stockings. Then I've got a DL card blank, so that is 7 3/4 by 8 1/4 scored and folded in half. And then I've got 3 sets of these. So this is a 2-inch square of white cardstock, basic white, and this is a 2 1/4 inch square of Evening Evergreen cardstock, and I've got 3 Evening Evergreen strips that I'm going to put across as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is just pop these on here so I know roughly where they're going to go so that I can decide on my sentiment. So I think I'm going to go with this Noel sentiment. So I'm going to grab my Evening Evergreen ink and I'm just going to stamp that Noel just in the middle here. And then I'm just going to glue these strips across. I'm going to use these for a bit of guidance as to where to put them. So I'm just gluing these squares together. And then I'm also just going to glue these bows just onto the stockings. So now I'm just going to use some dimensionals just behind here. So now I'm just going to pop these on here. So then I'm going to put some dimensionals behind the stockings as well. So there's my things, and I think I'm just going to finish that off with a few little gems. So I'm just going to use these Holiday Rhinestone Basic Jewels. I'm just going to pop one of the green ones just in the middle of each of those bows, just to finish it off. So then there's our first card completed. So for our second card, I've got a basic white top folding card blank. So that's 11 3/4 by 4 1/8, scored and folded in half. Then this is 5 1/4 by 3 5/8, so that's evening evergreen cardstock. Then this is 3 3/8 by 5 inches. And then I've cut these, so this is the smaller of the two stars, and I've cut the outside pieces from evening evergreen and the detail pieces from gold foil sheet. So I'm just going to stick those together. So I'm going to take my evening evergreen ink and I'm just going to stamp this sentiment that says "May your days be merry and bright" just down in the corner here. So then I'm going to lay out my stars, see where I want them to go. Then I'm going to take this gold from the Simply Elegant trim pack, and I want that to come down almost like these stars are baubles. So I'm just going to see where I just want to put those. So to put that one about there. So I'm just going to pop on a glue dot, just hold that in place. And then I'm going to pop another glue dot on behind the cardstock, just so that, just hold that in place. So then I want this one down here, so let's pop that one down there. And that one can go just there. So I'm going to put them on. This one here is quite long, so it's coming out of place a little bit. So I'm going to try when I put this one down to get that bit. Then I'm just going to pop some foam pads on the back of each star. I wouldn't normally put as many as 3 on the back of something this small, but I want to make sure that they hold the strings in place as well. So then I'm going to glue the pieces together just to finish off the card. And then I think I'm going to put foam pads behind this to stick it onto my card front. So I'm just going to use this outside kind of spare bit. So I'm just going to put that onto my card front. And there's my second card completed. So then for my third card, I'm going to take this, which is the other stocking, and I'm going to use my evening evergreen ink just to stamp that 3 times on some Poppy Parade cardstock. So then I'm going to take a piece of this snowy white velvet sheet, and I'm just going to print just this top bit of this 3 times on here. So then I'm going to do some paper piecing, but because I'm paper piecing, I'm going to cut it out with my scissors instead of the dies. So I'm just going to cut it out. You know, when you cut out with the dies, it gives you like a border around the outside, but with this I'm just cutting right on the line. And then I'm just going to cut the top bits out of here so that I can paper piece those onto my stockings. So then I'm going to glue these white tops onto the stockings. So then I've got this scrap of evening evergreen cardstock, and I'm going to use the Noel stamp just to stamp that with Versamark ink. And then I'm just going to sprinkle that with gold embossing powder. Then I'm just going to use my heat tool just to melt that powder. So I'm going to cut that down. So I'm just going to glue all the pieces down. So I've got an evening evergreen card blank, and then I'm just gluing this piece of 1 inch wide Poppy Parade cardstock on top. And then I've just got a strip of gold foil sheet. That's just going to go over the join there. Then I'm going to pop some dimensionals just behind the sentiment. So then I'm going to pop some dimensionals on the back of all these stockings as well. So then I'm just going to pop my sentiment at the top here. And I quite often use this grid at the top to make sure that things are central. And then I'm going to pop on my stockings. And I'm just going to put one of these little green gems just at the top of each of these stockings. So then there's that card completed. So then for this next card, I'm just going to stamp 4 of these detailed stars in evening evergreen ink onto bumblebee cardstock. And then I'm going to use this coordinating die to cut them out. So then I'm going to stamp this May Your Days Be Merry and Bright sentiment onto some bumblebee cardstock. So then I've cut that down. I've cut a piece of evening evergreen cardstock 1/4 inch bigger and a piece of bumblebee cardstock 1/4 inch bigger again. So I'm just going to glue those layers all together. And then I'm going to pop some foam pads behind this layer. Right, so then I've got a 5-inch square evening evergreen card blank, and I'm just gluing on a 4 3/4 inch square piece of bumblebee cardstock. Then I've got another piece of evening evergreen, so this is 4 1/4 inches square. And then I'm going to use some dimensionals just to pop these up. And then I'm just going to pop some more dimensionals on the back of here. I'm going to put them mostly in the middle because I want them to go on here. And I'm just going to pop that in the middle. So there's my 4th card finished. And finally, for my 5th card, I've got a 5-inch square piece of Evening Evergreen cardstock. And then I've got a 4.5-inch piece of Poppy Parade cardstock. And what I'm going to do with the Poppy Parade, I'm just going to grab my It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year stamp. And I'm going to stamp that all over this piece in Versamark ink. So then I'm going to sprinkle that all over with my gold embossing powder. So then let's just heat that up. So then all I'm going to do is just pop some foam pads on the back of there. So I'm going to use these outside pieces again, so I can get some nice long strips. So I'm popping that on there, and then I've got this detail piece which I've cut in gold foil sheet. I do wish that I'd put some adhesive sheet on the back before I cut it, but I didn't, so I'm going to just do it with glue. It would have been a lot easier with adhesive sheet because it's such a fine die cut. So that's my final card finished. So let's bring the rest in. So here are all of today's projects. I really hope you enjoyed making them with me. If you did, I'd appreciate you clicking like below, and you can also press subscribe if you'd like to see future videos. If you press the bell button and select all, then YouTube will also notify you when I have a new video available. All of the products that we've used today are listed in the description below, and there's also a host code there, so if you pop the host code into your basket before you check out, then I'll send you a free gift after the end of the month. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon.